Okay, today I'm at Chepstow Racecourse after a glorious afternoon on the turf with James Lovell. James, thanks for agreeing to talk to us. Predominantly known on course as DragonBet, formerly John Lovell, and you're also the chairman of the Welsh On-Course Bookmakers Association and a director on the board of the National Bookmakers Association. Can you tell us a bit about that?
I am, Simon. It probably sounds a lot loftier than it is really, but yeah, I've been, I always thought I'd never get involved in bookmaking politics. My father was involved and it always seemed a bad thing to do, but it's fallen upon me and I enjoy it.
Okay, now you've just launched DragonBet.
We have. Well, we're yet to launch. We're due to launch in a couple of months, but we're getting all the pieces in place, so it's exciting times.
Right, so you're going to be a bang up-to-date online firm and also bet on course and point-to-points.
Yeah, that's the plan. Bang up to date, we'll wait and see. But yeah, we're going to continue betting on course. We feel it's important to be, the whole plan is to be a racecourse bookmaker you can approach, be approachable, be a person. So we're going to be on course. We'll be at the point-to-points, which is my first love anyway. So we'll still be here. Okay,
now we're going to talk about all that later. But as always, I ask people to send me some information. That's quite, so I knew about this really, but I didn't get it from the horse's mouth. You've been a bit of a gamekeeper turned poacher with your brother. At one time, the Lovell brothers were a bit of a scourge around the nation's betting shops with putter-oners around the country.
We tried to be, yeah. It was we didn't do anything clever particularly, but we were always taking advantage of the price-wise grids when we used to hold the prices in the morning. So essentially, you were getting yesterday's prices today. So we always tried to use that to manipulate a bit of value, and we'd make the most of the each-way races, particularly the Betfred pushes. We wouldn't lay it back, so there was big ups, big downs, but it was profitable, it was enjoyable. But the bookmakers soon got wise, but it was a great time.
And how long did that sort of last for?
We did it about 5 years. 5 years, and we had a team all across the country from, well, every different city. It was a big operation. It was enjoyable.
So that would be, like you say, just getting the value and hope the value would pay off, or were you doing stuff with it?
Just getting, it's the whole ethos of bookmaking, the whole gambling is just trying to get the value. So we believe that by betting the value, it was no good laying them off. We'd keep the bet. So there's some big upswings, some big downturns, like I said, but enjoyable time. And yeah, it was good to be at the cut and thrust, a different side to the bookmaking.
Okay, now I had the pleasure of knowing your father, John, and your family have a history of being innovators in the bookmaking industry, especially your dad, because people may not know that he was the person that went to Australia, then came back with the original kit for the bookmakers to start using that instead of the traditional field books.
That's right,
do you remember much about that?
I do. I remember bits and bobs. Firstly, it's lovely to mention Dad because still at the racecourse now, people come up and mention his name, and it's really, it's lovely to be able to still carry his name forward on the racecourse. But yeah, he went to Australia. He thought the betting rings over here were antiquated. He saw the way they were doing it over there, and he brought back the computerised systems, which was just an interesting time. Again, I remember Barry Dennis always saying the computer will never beat me. I'll take more bets than the computer. But yeah, things changed, and he was part of the evolution of the racecourse, and it's still that way today.
Yeah, it wasn't just Barry Dennis. Nearly all of them said that, and laughed at the people that did lug in the car batteries and the stuff. But see how it turned out. So you worked with this probably wouldn't be allowed now, but you worked with your dad on course as a child on the floor?
Yeah, that's right. I think I've always been involved in the racecourse bookmaking. I think we're here at Chepstow. My first memory's been 5 years old, stood down in that betting ring, and I did manage to bet a winner that day, and I think I've bet one since. But yeah, I've worked with Dad for a long time. It was always going to the point-to-points and the dog tracks, the race courses, and it was a wonderful education. Yeah,
and your dad was a full-time bookie, did it for a living?
Yeah, full-time bookie. He actually started off at Cardiff Arms Park Greyhound tracks. They used to have the Greyhound track around the rugby stadium. And he said he went there one day punting as a young lad. He lost all his money, couldn't afford a drink. He went to a pub on the way home, and the bookmaker he'd lost all his money to was buying everyone drinks. So he thought, I'm kind of on the wrong side of the fence here. So he went from punter to bookmaker. And thank goodness he did.
And well, one of my very, very early interviewees was John Henwood. He's a colourful character and also, quite a renowned bookmaker. Was there much of a difference between the way they worked?
Yeah, well, I worked for John. That was a real education. I think it's always important as a bookmaker to try and work with as many people as you can. My father was predominantly a tax stalls bookmaker, so his idea was try and take as many tickets as you can and try and balance the books as much as possible, whereas John was one of the old-fashioned layers, so he'd be really taking strong bets, and it was great to work with him. He's a good education, and I'm thankful for my time with him.
And you mentioned your dad bet at the dogs. Did you used to enjoy that? Did you go there much?
That's right, yeah. We used to work at the flapping track in South Wales, which is still going, Ystrad Mynach. I think it's been bought out recently. But yeah, it's again, talk about education, it's the cut and thrust at flapping tracks. Everyone's trying to attack you. There's bent races and all the rest of it. And I was just lucky that being through that kind of education, a lot of the young lads today coming into the game don't get to have that education. So it's wonderful.
Okay, now this is once again something you told me. You got an unusual 18th birthday present.
I did. I got a share in the point-to-point book, so that's where my love for point-to-pointing first ignited. So I had a third share.
Now, was that a silent share, or could you start putting your oar in?
No, I could put my oar in. I think I got told when I was out of place very often, but yeah, I had a share. I think I had a little bit of an influence, and I still love the point-to-points to this day. I love being a market maker. You know, on the race course we're here, we're beholden to Betfair, but on the point-to-points we can have a go. It's our opinion against others, and it's good. Enjoy it.
So when you will talk about point-to-points later, but when your dad went, when you went, did you get Weatherby's, and would you study it all and then actually make the market yourself?
Still do, and I think it's an important thing to do. You know, I'd really try and it's good to actually be a real bookmaker and try and have an opinion and do a bit of work and get stuck into it. And sometimes you're right, you get paid, sometimes you're wrong and you get your bum kicked.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people deride the point-to-point bookmakers for the theoretical, as I keep pointing out to them, amount of margin on the board. Yeah. I mean, do you have to do things differently at a point-to-point than you would on a racecourse?
We do. It's the same theory. It's always the same theory. You're trying to lay horses at the right price. And I think in Wales we bet a lot tighter than a lot of the other point-to-points. But yeah, there is a big margin on the board, but you've got to work harder. You've got to get the prices right, and the margin only counts if you're laying the right horse at the right prices. Okay,
now to set the scene, you're 18, your father's a full-time bookmaker, you've fallen in love with the game. I assume you could have worked with him if you wanted to. You've got a third share at point-to-points, and then you've decided to go off to university.
I did, but I didn't take a usual course. I did business economics and gambling studies, which was well, it was one hell of an education. I keep talking about education, but it was great fun. I knew it was the right course for me because the first lecturer I went to, the lecturer said, it's Cheltenham in March. I won't be here, and I don't expect you lot to be here either. And I thought, well, this is the right course for me. So yeah, I really enjoyed my time. It was in Salford in Manchester, which was just a different world to South Wales, but great time, great education, great experience.
And were the other students like bookmakers, kids and that sort of thing?
No. Some of them were casino-based. One of them went to work for casino. One's an odds compiler at Bet365 now, and another guy works for the Benhams with the football compiling.
And are you in touch with these? Are you
still staying in touch now and again? Yeah, yeah, we cross paths quite often.
Okay, so did you learn anything at university that's helped you since?
I didn't. It was a different. I think you learn
a lot. You just went to have fun, didn't you?
I did have a lot of fun as well. You learn a lot more in real life experiences normally, don't you? So what I've learned, it certainly didn't help me pick any more winners, that's for sure. But it was a lot about the psychology of gambling legislations. It was around the time of the Gambling Act last time round, so that was quite interesting. But most of your education comes after university, I think.
Right, so you didn't come home and say, look, Dad, you're doing it all wrong.
No, I wouldn't dare.
Now, if we talk about innovators again, your dad set up one of the first betting and running shops. So when would that have been?
He did. I can't remember the year. It'd be the early 2000s, I guess. So that was an exciting time as well. Got involved in Betfair when that was really started to get going, and saw him running. Thought it was going to change the whole landscape of gambling, and to an extent it did. He realised the value of having an SIS licence. It was quicker than the Racing UK pictures and the At the Races pictures. So a lot of young lads had a lot of success coming through there. In fact, we had one lad who won 300 grand one year, and we said, are you coming to Cheltenham? He said, what's Cheltenham? And he just won £300,000. So it was eye-opening because it was a computer game to a lot of the lads, and some of them are still doing it in a less liquid market. They're still doing pretty well, but it's like everything, gambling changes and things don't stay still forever.
Is it still there in operation?
No, it changed when the race courses started opening up the boxes. It was no longer the quickest place to be, so it limped on for a few years, but it closed a few years ago. So
did it open when it was like finding it on the floor?
I wouldn't say find it on the floor, because I've always tried in running, and I think I'm on about minimum wage for the lifetime I've put in. You've still got to be good at it, but there's plenty of people who came and failed, but the people who were successful were really successful.
Right, so you didn't have one of the fabled links to the actual race tech?
No, and if I did, I wouldn't tell you anyway.
Right, so you say a lot of people made money in those betting and running in those days.
Yeah.
I mean, did you get involved in it?
I did. Like I say, I'm very poor at it. It was something I always wished I was better at. My brother was very successful. He did very well. He had a string of racehorses out of it at the age of 20 odds. But it's not an easy thing, and there's a particular skill, and it's not necessarily about reading a race. It's reactions. Well, there's lots of ways of doing it, but for some reason, I think bookmaking was more for me than in running.
Yeah, no, I went to the running shop in Canary Wharf once,
yep.
And I bet that was a very good friend of mine that was getting a nice few quid out of it. We bet watching the same pictures on exactly the same type of equipment. He won £3 grand, I lost 100 quid.
Yeah.
But those guys got a rude awakening when it suddenly started not going their way, and that was when the boxes
Yeah.
opened. How many of your guys followed it over the cliff, or how many evolved and kept the money?
A lot of them still evolved, and a lot of them have changed the way they do it. It's the same with all gambling, isn't it? Nothing stays still, and you've got to keep evolving. So I don't think many of them lost what they won, but some of them just lost the success they were having and perhaps moved on to other things. But like I say, a lot of them are still doing it. The markets are less liquid, but I don't think they'd ever work for a real living.
And what's your brother doing these days? Was he doing it full time?
My brother's doing it full time. He still bets in running, but he's strongly involved in DragonBet with me. So we're a family business. We've got close links, and it's great to work alongside him.
Okay, now innovative again. At one point, you were the youngest person in the UK to hold a bookie's license.
I was. I'm not sure if that was innovation or just being marched down to the magistrate's court to get your license at the time. I remember the first time I stood on my own was at Newbury Racecourse, and I think Colin, who you might know, Colin from the Southern Tracks, he came up and put 500 quid in my hand, and I quickly had to change my trousers because I didn't know what the hell to do.
Oh, yeah, Colin, yeah. Yeah, so as I say, I was lucky enough to know your dad quite well, really, and he sadly died in a road accident. So you took over the pitches. Yeah,
I did. I took over the pitches. So I was involved with a guy called John Lovell, who I'm still involved with. He's a great guy. We do things very differently. He works a lot on the other side of the country for our pitches at Newmarket and bits and bobs. But if you ever want someone on your side, John Willoughby's one of those people who's really on your side, and it means a lot to have someone like that behind you.
And do you think it would have ultimately been that had your dad not died, or would you have gone a different
route? I think
route?
so, but like most bookmaking fathers, they say, I don't want my son to get involved in this game, and they all end up getting involved.
Yeah. Now, as we mentioned at the start of the interview, you've become involved in the world of betting ring politics.
I have. Like I said, it was something I always thought I'd try and avoid, but yeah, I fell into it because I thought we were poorly represented in Wales. So yeah, I've got involved, for the better or worse, I'm not sure, but it was important during COVID, which kind of opened our eyes as a Welsh association. Although Wales was very good with giving businesses funding and COVID help, all gambling businesses in Wales were excluded, along with, well, we were put in the bracket of sex offenders, prostitutes, illegal activity, and more worrying politics as the people who weren't allowed to have funding. So that just kind of shows the wider view of gambling in the world, I suppose.
I think somebody showed me that letter.
Yeah, I think it might have been me.
Oh, was it? No, then, but I mean, bookmakers, notoriously, they can't agree because they all think somebody's going to be getting better than somebody else. And I mean, is that what you found with them? Is it a thankless task to try and get a load of bookies that distrust each other? It
is, but you've got to remember, I mean, bookmakers all come from different walks of life. They've got different pitches. Some are on the rails, some are in the ring. It's they're never going to pull together completely, but it's the case of the AGT at the moment. That seems to be going to the side. A lot of bookmakers want to keep it, some want it gone, but everyone knows if we work together, we'll be better for it. So hopefully, I live in hope that one day we can pull together and make some change.
Yeah, because now's never been more a time for the bookmakers to pull together, of course.
It's important, we're facing changing times as a racecourse, racecourse bookmakers. So yeah, very important, and hopefully we'll start working together at some point.